So anyway, let's jump into it. Let's talk about 10 ways to de-risk a deal. Now, this topic really became, top of mind with me when I was reading the book by Matt Dixon and Ted McKenna called The Jolt Effect. And one of the things they found in their analysis of over 2.5 million calls using AI is that one aspect of moving the deal forward, getting it unstuck, keeping it going, was to de-risk the deal. And I never really thought about it that way. I knew the concept, the idea, but they highlighted de-risking the deal will help the deal move faster. And in the book, they have a couple examples, but the more I ruminated on it, I thought to myself, what are other ways that we can de-risk a deal so people just say yes or you'll gain commitment? So I came up with 10, which I want to share with you today. Now, before I forget, if you are a member of the Sales Velocity Academy, go to salesvelocityacademy.com if you're not. If you're a member of the Sales Velocity Academy, you get a copy of this recording, but you'll also get these slides. I give them to you in PowerPoint and Keynote, depending on what you want to use. So keep in mind that as a member, that's one of the big bonuses. You get that. So, just log in. You'll see the content. I also give you the video again. I mentioned that. And whatever notes I have in there are also included with this. So you get all the material. Anyway, let's jump into it. 10 ways to de-risk a deal. We're going to go fast. The first one I like to talk about, let me back up a little bit. Let me just make sure we understand the concept. Sometimes a deal gets stuck or a customer refuses to say yes for some reason. So you're trying to understand psychologically what's holding that person back. And sometimes it's just that, I always say sales is about certainty and anxiety, right? Certainty and anxiety, kind of like a scale. And if there's a lot of uncertainty and anxiety, they're not going to move. If there's an equal amount of certainty and anxiety, they probably won't decide. Our job is to increase certainty and reduce anxiety. That gives you what I call the confidence gain. So keeping that in mind, that we're trying to find ways to give the customer the confidence to move forward. They're afraid of making a decision because they're afraid of being wrong. So what we need to do is find ways to lower that anxiety so they can move forward in the deal. And these are 10 ways you can do this. Now, my favorite example has always been this one with Hyundai. And as you know, Hyundai back in the day did not have a lot of buyers, right? So let's go through what their problem was. Their biggest problem was that the brand, when they first came out in the 1990s, they weren't known. Nobody really knew who they were, right? So again, poor perception of quality. So what was the problem? Why weren't people buying, right? Think about that. What was holding them back? What was the friction holding people back from making a buying decision? What was the friction? Give it some thought. What do you think it is? What was it that held people back from making a buying decision? Well, the answer was they were worried about maintenance in this case. So they were worried about, well, what if the car breaks down? If the car breaks down, well, how much is that going to cost? See, that's anxiety right there. That's anxiety. So what did Hyundai do? Again, if you think of certainty and anxiety, what did Hyundai do to increase their certainty and reduce their anxiety? Here's what they did. They decided, as their solution, was that they would de-risk the solution by offering a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. First company to ever do that. So when they did that, what did they do again? Again, I'm going to keep repeating this visual. They increased their certainty, but also reduced their anxiety. And people said, you know what? That's a great idea. I'll do it. So let's keep going. So that's strategy number one, is give them some type of guarantee, some type of warranty in this case. Strategy number one, let's go to strategy number two. Things were going well. Let's stick to the Hyundai example. Things were going well, but then this little thing happened, right? The recession, 2007 through 2009, recession happened. So now, let me ask you the question again. What's the client's pain? Why aren't they making a buying decision? Why aren't they moving forward in the sale? What is holding them back from making a decision? What is the friction? So think about this. What is the friction moving forward? There's a recession. What's the problem? See, this is where you have to kind of get inside the client's mind and go, what's holding them back? Because sometimes they can't verbalize it or won't. So your job is to figure out what's holding them back. So in this strategy, what we want to do is find out, okay, there's a recession going on. What's holding them back? Maybe it was fear of losing their job. So the marketing people said, you know what? It's fear of losing their job. That's what's holding them back from making a buying decision. So how do we de-risk the fear of losing your job? How do you de-risk it? How would you do it? How would you de-risk the fear of losing somebody's job? So you're a manufacturer, you're selling a product. People are not buying. That's why they're not buying, because they're afraid of losing their job. So that's what's holding them back. They're afraid of losing their job. What would you do? What would you do? If people were afraid of losing their job, what would you do to de-risk the deal? To give them the confidence to move forward, to raise their certainty, reduce their anxiety? Well, let's talk about what Hyundai did. Hyundai said, you know what? I'll tell you what. Here's the de-risking solution. A buyback program. If you lose your job, we'll buy the car back. Brilliant. Like brilliant at another level, right? In other words, if you lose your job, we'll buy the car back. Now, again, this is important to understand. If you understand the psychology of the buyer, and you know they're afraid of losing their job because you're kind of able to kind of detect that's what's going on, that's what's holding them back, then you institute a program that would reduce that anxiety and increase the certainty. And this is what they did. Now, here's what's fascinating. These numbers are just crazy numbers. Look at this. So, again, let me go back here. Sorry, I went back accidentally one. Let me go back forward. Got a small delay. Bear with me. So anyway, here are the results. In January 2010, when they institute this program, less than 100 people, let me move myself over here, less than 100 people actually used the program. And when they decided to end the program in 2011, like a year and a half later, less than 350 people actually used it. So a lot of people didn't use the program, but it was available. And the bottom line is bottom line. They sold, look at these numbers coming up. Bam! Their volume went from 7,500 cars to almost 15,000 cars per month. Wow. Right? So again, think of the psychology of this. And notice that, when they first rolled out the program, people were going, what? You're going to do a what? A buyback program? Are you insane? People are just going to take advantage of this. The reality is people really wanted a car, and nobody really abused the system. For all we know, these 350 people actually needed it. They actually lost their jobs. But because they knew how to de-risk the deal, these were the results. They understood that what was holding the client back from making a buying decision was not service, value, car, brand, all that stuff. It was really, if I lose my job, what do I do? Understanding that, getting inside their head, allowed them to create a de-risking strategy. So again, think about deals you're working on. Things that maybe they're not moving forward, so how can we de-risk it? That was strategy number 2. Let's jump into strategy number 3 as we chop through this. Now, how about this one? This is an interesting one. This one I've encountered quite a few times, and I use this one because I like this strategy. The unstated objection is, I'm not sure if I want to commit to a 1-year contract, right? So that is the unstated objection. That is the friction holding the customer back from making a buying decision. This could be a 1-year contract, could be a 3-year contract, 5-year contract, put whatever number you want in there. But because it's such a long-term commitment, the customer's like, I don't know. Especially we just started working together. This might be our first deal together. I don't know if I want to actually, commit to that. So what do? The obvious. You de-risk it. You say something like this. Why don't we do this? Why don't we just go ahead and instead of a 1-year commitment, why don't we just agree to do and work together for 3 months? What do you think of that strategy? Now, by shortening that contract length, you're reducing the anxiety because I said, okay, we can work for 3 months, right? Now, I've used this strategy a lot, especially when I coach corporations and companies, right? If I present a 1-year contract, they're like, yeah, I don't know, Victor, if we want to work. We don't know you yet. We don't know how this is going to work. And I said, okay, why don't we do this? Why don't we just do 3 months? And at the end of 3 months, we'll just measure it again and decide what to do then. And 9 times out of 10, literally, 9 times out of 10, they just go, let's do it. So again, this is a great de-risking strategy. By shortening the timeline, this is, you're getting their anxiety down. This is also known in psychological terms, a foot in the door strategy, FITD, foot in the door strategy. Let's just do 3 months. Let's just kind of work together, get my foot in the door, and then after 3 months, if I've delivered, we can then do a 1-year contract. Let's go to the next strategy here. Next strategy would be, by the way, and again, add that verbiage. At the end of that period, we can make a new decision. Does that work for you? Closing question right there. How about this one? This This is for my technology people out there who sell either software or any type of hardware into an existing company, right? Certain companies have a certain technological ecosystem already. In other words, they got stuff they use already, different types of equipment, different types of software. They have a tech ecosystem, tech stack. So one of the reasons they may not want to buy from you if you're selling technology products in general, again, software, hardware, or firmware, doesn't matter, is there's three little humps here. The first one they're going to ask you, is this compatible? So in other words, will your product work with our existing system? So if your product does work, let's bring that up. The next one is upgradability. In other words, can you add more features? So this might be one where, look, we just want to buy the base model now, and if we do buy the base model, is it upgradable? In other words, if we buy the burger, can we get some fries later on with that? If we buy the base model operating system, right, whatever that is, can we actually add features to it? And again, the answer would be yes. And the third one, very similar, but it's different. Expandable means more capacity. And the best way to explain this one as a visual is that if you buy a computer today and you buy, let's say, 1 terabyte for that computer, you want to be able to say, is there an expansion slot in there where I can actually go to 2 terabytes if I want to do that? Is it expandable? So again, by making it compatible, upgradable, or expandable, using that as part of your presentation, that reduces the anxiety, because what it allows the client to think about is two things. One, these are all future upgrades, but now, presently, I only have to buy so much. But I know that in the future, I'll have options to upgrade, and expand my technology. So they love that. So again, what you're doing is you're reducing that anxiety by saying, look, buy small today, and we can grow as you grow. So that's always a great sales pitch. Next one. Let's go to this one. This is kind of a subtle one. I learned this from lawyers. Yeah, I learned this from lawyers. The unstated objection is, I don't like open-ended agreements or, automatic renewals. So I got to tell you a story. So years ago, I was working for a big technology company, and I remember we got a contract from a client, and I stopped by our legal counsel's office to kind of go through the contract, and his name was Steve, I forgot his last name, Garcia, I think it was. And he said, Victor, and I just remember what he said to me. He goes, Victor, every contract you sign, like literally, he said, every contract you sign should have a start date and a stop date. Never forget that. And that just stuck with me, because what he's saying is you want to make sure that when you're entering into a contract, you know when it begins and when it ends. And so sometimes customers have that anxiety. Well, and again, they might be thinking, well, when's this going to end? So the unstated objection, they're not saying it out loud. I don't like open-ended contracts or things that just renew, especially in the world of all these subscriptions, right? Renewals just kind of are the bane of our existence sometimes. So the DeRisk solution would be this. This service agreement will run from January 1st and will end the following year, January 1st. And then you can add words like this. It will not automatically renew without your formal consent. Now, customers love to hear this. It will not be renewed, they love that part already, without your formal consent or in writing. So this gives them that sense of control that they know when to stop or end this program, and it's not going to automatically renew. One of the biggest issues we face today, just as a society, is that we have so many subscriptions, and sometimes those subscriptions renew, and you're like, oh, I didn't want to renew that. And so we have this subscription fatigue going on now. And the anxiety that comes with trying to keep track of all these renewals is too much, and we'd rather not do any more contracts, just kind of, I don't want to do this anymore. So this is a great de-risking strategy if you're just giving the customer a time frame and it doesn't automatically renew without your written consent. All right, strategy number 6. This is another type. And again, I'm throwing out ideas here. And if you have any de-risking strategies, let's talk about it. This is the price drop guarantee. The unstated objection might be, well, what if I buy now and the price drops? What if I buy now and the price drops? Victor? Well, here's what you're going to do. The de-risking solution is, if you buy now, we will give you a 2-year price match guarantee, which means that if the price does change, we will match that price. Now, again, I don't know if this pertains to your business, but it's an interesting strategy, because what you're saying is buy now, and if the price goes down, the subscriptions rate go down, whatever it may be, we will match that price. What's the goal here? As always, to reduce that anxiety and increase that certainty. Once we get that increased certainty, reduce anxiety, remember, that is called the confidence game. Let me explain what I'm saying by that, because I think maybe it's shooting past some of you, because it's really important. When you think about business, right? Let me just draw above this. If we think about business, here's the revenue line. Okay, here's revenue, how much money you make. right? Here's the cost of a product, the cost of manufacturing. So you got revenue and you got cost. We know revenue minus cost equals a profit margin. And our goal is to always to what? Increase revenue and reduce the cost to increase. So this profit margin goes up. Let me go different color now. Let me go red here so you get it. So now when I talk about the confidence margin, I am saying here is certainty, right? Here's anxiety. Sorry, I can't spell well. And our job is to increase certainty, reduce anxiety, to increase not the profit margin, but the confidence margin. And once the confidence margin is high enough, they'll make a buying decision. So that's really what I mean by that when I'm talking about the confidence margin. I kind of came up with that concept. You know, to me it works in my head. But anyway, so let's go to the next one. How about this one? You know, I'm going to wait, Victor. You know what? Because of pricing, right? So the DeRisk solution here is if you decide to rent now, and again, I'm using this as, you know, I guess rental property was this example. You know, what I'll do is I'll lock this price in for 3 years. If you buy now, even if the price rates go up, we will not increase your price. So again, this is another way of just price guaranteeing people. Now, this is a great strategy when you're just trying to build a business and you're just trying to get an initial portfolio of customers. And it's okay to do this deal or these deals if I'm just trying to build a base business. Now I know I got a steady state revenue stream or a steady revenue stream coming in. So again, this is a great strategy for getting off the ground. Number 8, we're moving. Limit the scope. Now the limits the scope, you know, sometimes it's a big project, right? And we're just not ready to start. This is kind of like, you know, the elephant's too big. This is too much to think about. Now, this could be anything from you're trying to implement some type of, I'll say, some software program, some training program that you know it's going to impact different departments, different divisions, or different groups, or again, different departments. And so from the buyer standpoint, they want to do it, but it just seems like it's too much. It's too big, right? It's like, you know, it's too many unknowns, too many variables. So our job, when you feel that anxiety, like it's overwhelming for them, because we're going to change a lot of things. I mean, think of a house. If I say to you, we're going to remodel the whole house. We'll do this. You got 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a living room. We're going to remodel the whole house. And you're like, it seems like a lot of stuff going to go on, and I don't know how long this is going to take. So what we want to do, if we can use that analogy, is begin by limiting the scope. Again, kind of a foot in the door strategy, something to get started. But what you do is you limit the scope by saying something like this. And again, for example, a pool. There's a lot of moving parts to a pool, right? A lot of things you got to think about. So what if you just, well, why don't we just focus on getting the fencing and the permits done so that when you're ready, we can start right away. Now, this is a nice way of easing into a big project. So let's say it's a big pool project. We don't know where to start. Well, let's just begin by putting in the fencing, right? And getting the proper permits to get this done. And then when you're ready to take the next step, we'll do that. Now, what you're doing here is obviously building some momentum with the client. Remember, getting them moving in the direction is better than, you know, having them at zero, inertia, not moving. So again, this is a way of just getting people going by saying, you know what, let's do it, slowly. One thing at a time, using the house analogy. Why don't we start with the most important room? Let's go ahead and start with the living room or the dining room. Let's begin there. And after that, let's figure out what's the next room going to be. So again, what we're doing is chunking down. That's a good phrase, right? Chunking down, the big scope of the project. And over time, our goal is to get the whole house and get the whole pool system. So next, cruising in, let me see, skin in the game. This is an interesting one. Skin in the game is like, you don't want to, sometimes you're working with a customer and they're like, well, it's not risky for you. It's only risky for me, right? You don't have any skin in the game. This is all on me. So how do you change that? Well, here's one strategy you might want to think of it. Customer might be thinking, why should you care? Either way, you get paid. So, what if I don't like it, he says. What if I don't like it? You can say something like this. And again, use your own example. Let's say you're a contractor, building a gazebo. I'm picking things here out of mid-air. The DeRisk solution might be, well, I'll tell you what. I'll only charge you 70% for the material and labor, right? I'm only going to charge you for the material and labor, right? And if you don't like it, I'll eat the remaining, 30%. That's bold. You got to be bold to do that. You got to be willing to do that. But this is a way of saying, look, let's just pay for the cost. And at the end, you don't like the design, I'll eat the 30%. That's how confident I am. You're going to love my design. When we're done with this is going to be exactly what you want, Mr. Customer. So again, it's a nice way of saying, let me take some responsibilities off of your shoulder, reduce your anxiety. Let me take some of that anxiety and I'll put it in my pocket, 30% worth, and let's see what happens. Last one is the completion guarantee. And this one I've always liked. I'm not sure, it'll be done on time. There was a time where, especially during like the pandemic, things weren't getting done on time. So how do you ensure you don't pay us 1 cent, here's a de-risking strategy, until we've completed the job and you're satisfied? We will not bill you until 30 days after completion. So this is basically saying, look, put it in first. I need to see it. Once I see it, then I'm willing to pay you. Again, this is one of those strategies. You got to be careful when you use it. But if you're a great company and you deliver great product or service, people will feel this. And I think you'll be able to use that. So on that note, here they are, all 10 strategies. And it'd be kind of cool for you to tell me which is your favorite. Like, what would you use or what do you currently use? And if I've missed a strategy, I'd love to hear what you'd have to say. And that is it for this program. And again, if you're in the Sales Velocity Academy, you'll be able to download these slides, whether it's Keynote or PowerPoint. They are there for you. And I think that was the last slide. Thank you.